Yes.
There we go.
Count it, baby. How cool is this? All right. Well, better. I'm glad it worked. I'm glad it worked. Guys,
Perfect.
wow. We're going live from his page. Let's do this. Episode 5 coming to you live from El Salvador. Excited for this. Introduce yourself, man. Tell everybody who you are.
Hey guys, I'm Daniel from La Garza Hostel here in El Salvador. Um, Studied with Brent in TCU. Check out the
Go
shirt,
Frogs,
Brent.
baby. Yeah. Go Frogs. Yes.
And we're going to talk a little bit about how El Salvador is dealing with the whole coronavirus situation, and also going to give you a bit of some travel tips so you guys can work your way around El Salvador once this whole coronavirus thing is done.
Exactly. I tell you what, too many people skip El Salvador when they go through Central America. Today, after this episode, you can realize why you have to go to this country. So, well, and also, so yes, we did study together, but you're quite the traveler as well. We've crossed paths. He showed me a great time. We got to El Salvador. We actually met up. You decided to do a last minute trip to Guatemala. So it was fun finally meeting. We always just, and where else? Russian World Cup,
Russia,
baby.
yeah, for the World Cup.
That was awesome. Yeah, so it's been fun having reunions all over the world. So let's dive into it. What's El Salvador like? I know you guys are on a lockdown or a quarantine notice. What's going on in your neck of the woods?
So to give you a little bit of a recap of what the government's done in El Salvador since late January, it's been getting a lot of attention. It's one of the governments that's doing the most with the whole coronavirus situation. So they started by banning travelers from China. That was, I think, late January. I think the last day of January 31st.
Yeah.
There was no travelers from China were allowed to go into El Salvador. And in the next couple of weeks following that, other countries that had the most coronavirus cases, like South Korea, Italy, Iran, Germany, France, then Spain follow, I guess,
Yeah.
were not allowed to come into El Salvador. And finally, was it like a week ago? I think it was March 17th, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
The government shut all the borders. No one could come in or out from the airport or on the land borders too. They started closing schools, started closing bars, restaurants, clubs, sporting events. And it all led to this past Sunday, so 4 days ago, the government declared pretty much a total shutdown. Everyone to be in their house for quarantine for 30 days, which has been one of the most drastic measurements. I think a lot of the countries have done 14 days. El Salvador is going for 30.
Yeah.
And only one person from every household can go out to buy groceries or to the pharmacy.
Do you designate one person, or just one person can leave at a time?
You designate, the family designates one person to go out and buy groceries. And I think you can only go out twice a week. That one designated person can only go out twice a week, I believe.
Wow.
And so it's and the thing is, when the borders were shut, we had no coronavirus cases.
Yeah.
After the borders were shut down, we had the first case that was a guy that came illegally from a land border. Yeah, that was previously in Italy, and that was the first case. And following that case, in the last couple of days, there's been another 8 cases. So we're totally 9 cases right now. So it's not a huge number. Of course, it's increasing day by day, but in my opinion, the government has been very proactive in taking measurements before things go bad.
One of the few governments trying to stay ahead of it rather than playing catch up, because it seems like a lot of the world's playing catch up right now. What's the rest of the vibe with Central America? Have you heard much about what other countries are doing?
So I'm hearing that Guatemala and Honduras are taking similar measurements. I'm not sure if it's 30 days or a bit less.
Yeah.
What I'm hearing is Nicaragua is not doing a lot about it. I was actually looking at a video from a government official in Nicaragua, pretty much telling people to go out on the streets, and like they're pretending like nothing's happening. Similar to Mexico. Also, Mexico's kind of not doing much about it, and not following the whole stay-at-home.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how that bites them in the butt. Because what was it, a year and a half, almost 2 years ago, Nicaragua, right, with all their protests, they really kind of screwed up their tourism at that point, and so I'm
Yeah.
sure they're still feeling the effects of that, and our hope. But I mean, luckily it's as if the whole world is on quarantine, right? I mean, even if you want to go, unless you're in Central America now, you ain't catching a flight. I mean, catching flights, it's crazy how the whole world is practically grounded. So
Yeah, I think all the borders in Central America are closed except for Nicaragua, I'm guessing. But for sure, Guatemala, Honduras are all closed, and traveling right now it's non-existent. Not only in
yeah,
Central America, but I would say in the majority of the world.
yeah. I mean, you know me, I'm one of those guys that loves to keep going, but I am officially shut down until further notice.
Tell me a little
So
bit about how was your journey going to Singapore? I've been following you, but just for La Garza Hustle followers, take
yeah,
us a little
yeah.
on how you got to Singapore. I think you got there like the last day that the borders were
Man,
closing.
I got so lucky. I tell you what. So I back in December when I was planning to come back to Asia, I decided to go to Bangladesh and Nepal. My goal was to find a wild Bengal tiger. Had to see a tiger in the wild. Went to Bangladesh. What an amazing country! It's very extreme. Incredible hospitality there. Went to the Sundarban, which is the world's largest mangrove forest. Spent a few days there with one of my buddies there. Beautiful country, no tiger, which is okay. Luckily, then went to Nepal, and at this point, Singapore was starting to ban even more countries, and they banned all the ASEAN countries, which is mostly Southeast Asia, right? So Thailand, Cambodia, Myanmar, all those countries. But luckily, Nepal and Bangladesh do not fall within that criteria. So continued on in Nepal, traveled
They
around for a
haven't
bit.
any coronavirus cases in Bangladesh, Nepal by that time.
They one confirmed in Nepal, and then Bangladesh zero that the government said. I just don't think they were testing for it at that point. So as soon as I left Bangladesh, it was as if they practically closed their borders just a few days after. And then with Nepal, I got there 2 days before they stopped giving out visas on arrival. So really, really, really lucky. And, did most of my trip. Finally got to Bardia National Park after a super unforgettable 15-hour bus ride. Found the tiger. And on my third day going into the park, which just for everyone to know, you literally walk in this park, all right? So you're walking among wild tigers. Like, people have been attacked. People have been killed by these tigers. It's one of the best experiences on the planet if you like animals. Day 3, I was supposed to do a Jeep tour with a Dutch couple, and they backed out because they decided they need to get back to their country. And I was like, well, I'll still do 2 more days here, then I'll get back to Kathmandu, continue my plans as normal. And get to the entrance of the park. The owner of the homestay calls me. She's like, hey, Brent, we've heard rumors that the long-term buses in the country are going to stop running because they're going to shut down flights. And I was like, well, guess I'll be leaving tonight. So caught one of the last buses out, was trying to book flights, looking at flights, and finally the next morning booked one. Well, it was actually sold out. So found a flight that I liked that worked, totally sold out. But luckily, Katie had done some amazing research, and my mom was helping back in the United States, found a flight on Expedia. That was literally one of the last seats out of Nepal because then they officially closed their borders the next day. I was one of the last tourists to enter Singapore, and then they closed their borders to transit as well as foreigners as well. So it's been a crazy, crazy ride these last weeks.
Is the quarantine like mandatory, or
So
are you
it's a mandatory
quarantining by yourself?
It's a stay-at-home notice. So you have to stay at home. Like I'm in an apartment, you have your own bed. You have to have your own bedroom and you have to have your own bathroom, but you cannot leave for 14 days. So this is day 6. So it's going a little crazy. It's luckily Netflix is saving me talking to people.
Do you have like a guard guarding the apartment or something? Because I've heard in Guatemala they're doing that. So they're quarantining people at their homes, but they have security outside the residence, making sure that people don't go out.
So Singapore is very technologically advanced. So they're doing by location of your cell phone. And I tell you what, there's so many CCTV cameras that they will, they've caught over 80 people now who if they deported, there's a fine of $10,000 and up to 6 months in prison. And so it's enough for me. I'd sometimes bend the rules to have fun, but in Singapore, absolutely not worth it. So it's an interesting time to be Asia. Katie and I were supposed to be traveling Asia until the Olympics. Well, the Olympics are now postponed for a year. So just like the rest of the world, there's a lot of unknown for our future, but it'll all work out.
Glad you made it to Singapore,
Yes.
man.
No, me too. Me too. I mean, I've got 90 days here, so hopefully borders open up before then. But time will tell. Who knows? So, okay. So I got another question for you. So what is there panic buying in El Salvador? I mean, are you guys?
Yes, there is.
Yeah.
Yes, there is. People buying toilet paper like crazy.
So okay, El Salvador is running out of toilet paper as well. Okay, cool.
We're not sure if we're running out, but people are definitely buying a lot of toilet paper. What
Okay.
we're running out of is masks and alcohol gel.
Yeah, okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting. So pretty consistent with the rest of North America then. Interesting. Yeah. Dang, man. So when does your 30-day notice end?
What?
So your quarantine, the 30 days, when does that end? Mid-March?
So this is what is it, Wednesday? This is day 4 of the 30 days. So we still got to go. Yeah.
It's super early. Oh, I didn't realize it was that. Okay. Wow. And
what about you? What day are you in your quarantine?
Day 6. And so, but see, Singapore's they're slowly taking the steps to close the country. They just closed the bars and like entertainment outlets starting today. So, and like restaurants are still open. Once you do your stay at home, Singapore is more or less similar, but now they're really doing the social distancing. Like I've seen photos, they'll have spots on where you're supposed to stand on the elevator, spots in the restaurants that, put a meter between everyone. So I hope that I don't get my freedom and then Singapore's on official lockdown. That would be, I hope I can get at least one day of fresh air,
Yeah. So in El Salvador, all restaurants are closed. You can only order delivery. So there's a huge demand for like the delivery guys that are on their motorcycles sending food to the residents.
Wow.
I actually have a friend that works in one company that does delivery, and he was telling us that they need more people to go out and deliver food because there's such a demand of people wanting, their food at home.
No, definitely. Yeah. What if you're out of work, that's definitely one of the options. Or work at grocery stores. I tell you what, in the United States, they're hiring like they can't get enough people.
Yeah.
If only we could train nurses and doctors sooner. There's quite a shortage of that around the world as well. So it's man, what a crazy time! Absolutely crazy time.
On that note, I think the president said something yesterday or one of these days about wanting to graduate the doctors and nurses kind of before time to have more of those to fight the virus.
Wow. The hands-on. Yeah, because and even in Europe, they're asking all the medical students if they can, volunteer and get to the hospitals. I mean, on one hand, it's like, wow, you can work on the biggest pandemic that's hit the world in over 100 years. There's like, I've heard that some hospitals are only giving nurses and doctors 1 mask per day, not per patient, per day. It's just like, man, that's ridiculous. So,
and the problem here and why the government, I think, has taken such extreme measurements is because we don't have the infrastructure in the hospitals to take care of all the people that might get sick. So I was seeing some stats. I think El Salvador has like 70 intensive care unit beds, right?
That's it. Yeah.
And if people get sick and there's thousands of people that need those, there's no way that we can handle that mess. So what they're doing is actually they're building what they say is going to be the biggest hospital in Latin America with 300 more intensive care unit beds. Yeah.
Again, that's impressive. Your government staying. Again, that's impressive. Your government staying ahead of it. Let's hope it stays that way.
Hopefully.
Wow. So okay, enough. Well, actually, you're on day 4. What have you been doing for fun for your quarantine? Show everybody this view. Do a quick panorama. A pan. Because I think you've got the best quarantine spot in the world.
Yeah, it's not a bad place to be in quarantine. It's a bit lonely because I'm here by myself. Actually, 2 staff members from the hostel that live here also with me. They're kind of keeping me company and helping me out here and there. But man, I've been relaxing a lot, to be honest. Working a little bit on the business side of the business plan of the hostel. But I was working really hard before the quarantine to get the whole building of the hostel and managing the construction side of it.
Right.
So for the last 4 days, I've just been taking it slow and just not doing much, to be honest.
Can you take your phone, flip the camera, and show everybody this view? Let's see it.
All right. Give me a sec. So this is Shalpa Beach. This is right now we have a high tide, but when there's low tide, the beach goes up to like around there.
Is that right? Okay.
And I'll just show you a little bit of the hostel for the viewers. These are the shared dorms right here. We have a brand new infinity pool. And this is a little bit messy and still not painted and still a lot of work to be done. But this is the heart of the hostel, some private rooms up here, social areas, and a lot of nature. Definitely
Amazing,
why
man.
I chose this place for La Garza is the surroundings.
You picked the
Very
right spot. It's been very fun following.
place to be during quarantine, that's for sure.
Yeah, but I tell you what, it's been fun following your project of opening up this hostel. I mean, you know, when you had to change locations last time we saw each other, right? And there's just you've been very fluid, but it's amazing that your dream has come to life. You're so close, so close.
It's been taking it's taken longer than it should have, and now with this whole coronavirus thing, it's gonna take a couple more months. But
yeah,
once this is all over, it's gonna be great, and we're gonna open the doors to everyone around the world once the borders are open, and hopefully, you know, everyone can come here and enjoy some days at Shalpa Beach.
absolutely. That'll be the place to go in Central America, no doubt about it. With a view like that, it's going to be tough to leave. So, speaking of, let's dive into travel. Let's, you know, El Salvador, again, not too many people know about it. You know, I mean, they know of the country, but travel-wise, unfortunately, it's the one that skip. There's even a campaign that, you know, you see stickers, don't skip El Salvador, right?
Exactly.
So, in your opinion, what are the top 3 must-do, must-see things in El Salvador?
Okay, so El Salvador is a tropical country, right? So definitely, I think top 3 would be the beaches, La Libertad beaches. What you're seeing here in the background would be one of the most popular destinations to go around La Libertad. There's a lot of surfing around here.
Big time, yeah.
Many beaches in a very small area that you can go hop around and surf around. So that'd be one.
Yeah.
Another, I would say, Coatepeque Lake and Santa Ana volcano area. Took you there.
Definitely. Yeah, which is just just outside of San Salvador, right? Capital city.
It's yeah, everything here is just a couple hours away.
Which is
from
awesome.
everywhere.
Makes traveling so easy. Yes.
So yeah, the beach here is an hour away from San Salvador, and the lake and the volcano are also another hour away in a different direction from the capital city. So that's a lake it's actually an extinct volcano. The lake is inside the crater of an extinct volcano, and right next to that lake it's another active volcano that you can hike. You see a beautiful sulfur lagoon in the crater of the lake with an amazing view. That I would say is also one of the top 3 things to do in El Salvador.
Definitely.
And going outside the natural part of it might be Ruta Las Flores, which is the flowers route, and that's 4 or 5 little colonial towns in El Salvador that have a lot of history.
That's a little like northern part of the country, right? Is that or correct me if I'm wrong?
Exactly, it's towards the north.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Okay.
Exactly, and also there's a lot of waterfalls there to hike, and yeah, it's beautiful. A lot of food. There's food festivals on the weekends in those towns, and yeah, it's really nice. So I would say those are the top 3: beaches, lake, Santa Ana volcano, and Ruta Las Flores, flowers route.
You know, okay, I gotta say, man, I'm shocked you didn't add in football. That football experience we had together was nuts.
The what experience? I'm sorry, I didn't hear that.
Football.
You gotta, yeah. Let's make it a top 4. Let's make it a top 4. Go to an Alianza match at the Blanca section. That's definitely an experience that tourists love. It's a tour that I've been doing with my girlfriend Andrea's hostel, and I took you and Katie, and I've taken a lot of people, and everyone that goes there definitely has a great time. It's something really different from the usual.
Now, for sure, for those of you watching the U.S., soccer, right, is football known in the rest of the world. Football is such a way of life in Central and South America, even Europe. Like, when you're in Central America, you have to catch a football match. There's nothing like it. I mean, the energy you'll experience there, it's so much fun.
It's like being in a concert more than being at a sporting event. It's like you're jumping up and down and singing, and there's a lot of energy going on.
Absolutely. Yeah, man, I loved it. So food wise, let's dive in. What are some of your favorite dishes? What if you could only eat one thing from El Salvador the rest of your life, what are you picking?
That's the easiest question. Pupusas, man, of course.
Yes. Yeah. So
For
explain,
your
what are
followers, the people
pupusas?
that are watching that don't know what pupusas are, it's the national dish of El Salvador. It's pretty much like a stuffed tortilla. Inside you put, you can put a lot of things, but the most common is beans, cheese, pork, and you can get fancy with it and add like shrimp or all type of vegetables. But they're really cheap. They go for around 25 cents dollars,
Yes. Yeah. And
and
they're pretty big. I mean, they'll fill you up. I mean, you can eat
yeah,
one and you're good. If you're super
yeah.
hungry
So a
too, but
dollar worth of pupusas are, yeah, you're good. You're good with a
heck
dollar
yeah.
worth of pupusas.
Heck yeah, yeah. And you guys, just to let everyone, you guys use the US dollar, right? That's your currency.
We do since 2000. We're
Yep.
using US dollars.
So that was fun getting to another country, getting out the US currency. So that makes life a little easier. Any weird foods, anything interesting you guys eat in El Salvador that's different from the rest of the world?
I think the weirdest, it's not very common, but you
Yeah.
do find it. It's frog legs.
Ah,
You find that in other parts of Asia. I've
right,
had those in Southeast Asia,
right, right.
but you can find it here too. It's not the most common thing to try around, but you can definitely find the ancas de rana, frog legs here.
How do they serve? Is it grilled? Is it baked? How do they do their frog legs?
Grilled, it's grilled.
Okay.
I think,
Did
yeah.
did you have
I've
it in?
had him. I've never had him in El Salvador. I had it in
Ah,
Southeast Asia. Yeah,
okay.
but I've
Something
seen him.
something to try when you get out of quarantine, huh?
Yeah, exactly. Something to look forward to. Having some frog legs.
Yes, yeah, yeah. The taste of freedom, frog legs. So, what are some of the stereotypes of El Salvador that are true, and also those that you can debunk that are false?
Okay, so a stereotype that I think it's true about El Salvador is that we're a very welcoming country. Our
Yep,
people are very friendly and welcoming with tourists. And you can tell me if I'm
I
right or
agree.
not.
No,
Our
definitely
people
agree.
are extremely friendly, and we have a reputation of being like that with tourists, and I would say that is definitely a stereotype that's true. A stereotype that I would say is false is that El Salvador is dangerous to travel to.
Yep.
We get a lot of bad media, but as a tourist, you run no risk. And you've been here in El Salvador. Maybe you can share a
I was
bit
gonna
of your
say,
experience traveling around El Salvador, and if you felt unsafe at any point, or I would like, your point of view on
no,
on that.
absolutely. Yeah, we really never had an issue. I mean, like, San Salvador is a big city, and just like any big city, you just need to be street smart, right? You talk to the locals, you can quickly find out I mean,
Like
this
everywhere in
I
Latin
was gonna say,
America.
it's just anywhere in the world. I mean, even the United States. You go to Chicago, you go to New York. There's going to be parts of the cities you don't go to, right? But yeah. I mean, El Salvador, even just all of Central America, it sometimes gets a bad rap. Guys, go when these borders open. I would say that's one of the best hidden gems of the world. Germans know about it. The Dutch know about it because they're everywhere. But a lot of people, a lot of travelers miss out, and I mean, easily spend a month or two going from Mexico all the way down to Colombia, because each country is so different. They have just all the activities you can do is so worth it. So do not skip El Salvador. El Salvador is such a gem. And, these people that get to Central America miss out sometimes. So, no, safety-wise, there's not, just be streets. Don't be an idiot. The people who find themselves in trouble, they're usually drunk or on drugs, and it's usually quite late at night. So the people who get mugged, ask them where they were, if they were sober, and what time it was, because those are the people that usually run into trouble anywhere in the world, not just Central America. All right. So, yeah, I'm glad you brought that up because, again, street smarts, no matter where you travel in the world, you need to be smart about it. Another question for you. What is your favorite thing about El Salvador?
I think my favorite thing about El Salvador is it's the size. It's going back to the distances. You can be at the beach, at the lake, at the mountains, all in one day. I think if you go from one point to another in El Salvador, like the extreme opposites, you drive around 3.5 hours. That's from the border of Honduras to the border of Guatemala, you know, from east to west.
Yeah.
So everything is really close. You can get to see a lot in a small amount of time. So it's really easy to travel within. That would be my favorite thing about El
And
Salvador.
I don't personally, we didn't have a car. You don't need a car. I mean, there's good
No,
buses run very easily as well. So.
yeah. You can travel through public transportation around the country, and since it's very small, it's the smallest country in America, excluding the Caribbean islands. So that makes it really easy to travel.
Absolutely. No, I couldn't agree more with you. All right, how about another one
And the
for you?
climate is also a bonus, man. It's 365 days of the year with warm weather and tropical climate. So that's also
paradise.
one of my favorites.
I mean, look behind you. It's literally paradise. And I was going to say, and no one on the beaches, but that's because of quarantine. But it is, there's very, you know, luckily, even when the borders open up, you'll find a nice sliver of beach to yourself.
Yeah.
Okay, how about this? What's one thing about your country that would surprise people?
One thing about country that would surprise people, with it being a small country, we have 14 volcanoes. 6 of them are active. So I think that's a fun fact. This country is really small, but it's very volcanic. We have a lot of volcanoes.
And some fun hikes because of that, like you mentioned earlier. Now, you guys, when was your last? Didn't you have a big eruption last 10 years or so?
That was in, I think it was 2007.
Okay, just over 10 years ago. Yeah.
I'm not mistaken, the Santana eruption, I think.
Yeah.
Not sure.
Okay.
Some of my friends that I see are joining the live can corroborate that.
Yeah, no, that sounds right to me. Yeah, a lot of volcanic activity in El Salvador as well as the rest of Central America. If you want, some of the best volcano experiences you can get are definitely in Central America. Man, I tell you what, it's good to see you. Glad you're doing well. Any other burning questions you have? Anything else you want to share on this stage?
I have some questions from the La Garza followers for you.
Oh, cool!
So
bring it on.
Yeah. Maybe you can answer some of them. What is the cheapest country that you've traveled to?
Oh,
I think I know the answer to that question, but I wanna hear what you
question.
think. Cheapest country.
Jeez, cheapest question. I'm gonna base it off of scuba diving prices as well. One of the cheapest places I've been to was Egypt. I was shocked at how cheap Egypt was, especially when it comes to scuba diving. Scuba diving is one of my favorite things to do. And typically around the world, scuba diving, you're going to spend between $30 and $50 per dive. Egypt, one dive, full equipment, $17.50 US. And that's in the Red Sea, which is one of the best spots to dive. So when you encompass all the activities that I do, definitely Egypt was one of the cheapest experiences for sure.
Is it cheaper than Vietnam?
See, where Vietnam got a little bit expensive was Ha Long Bay. Vietnam's super cheap. I mean, when it comes to eating street food, it's very similar to El Salvador, right? Where you can get a massive plate of food for $1, and it's some of the best street food you'll ever have in your life. But again, like there's so many. Even Central America is quite cheap to travel. Southeast Asia is insane. I mean, depending on your travel style, you can make a lot of these places around the world quite cheap. So yeah. I mean, Vietnam, was super cheap as well. So I tell you what, another one, Southeast Asia, Myanmar. Myanmar is quite cheap, and you're not competing with very many tourists there. That's the forgotten child of Southeast Asia.
I'm hearing some of the comments from the people that are joining live are asking if it's cheaper than Kosovo or Indonesia. Some people asking.
See, okay, Kosovo's quite cheap. Indonesia, I mean, we're having a battle on what country is the cheapest to travel.
Yeah.
You know, like, luckily, there's quite a few options when you're traveling the world. The biggest expense, depending on where you're going to be traveling from, is your flight. That's what's going to, potentially, I mean, a lot of these countries that you go to, that's going to be your biggest ticket item. And once you're there, a lot of these countries, you can easily live off of $20 to $50 a day max. I mean, in Vietnam, actually most of Southeast Asia, you have to try hard to spend $20. I mean, you literally have to be like, please take my money to spend that much in some of these. The one thing that's expensive is the tourist attractions. That's what's going to break the bank, because a lot of these countries, will charge tourists more than they charge locals. So that's the one thing where, unfortunately, as a tourist, but again, it's like the locals are paying what, 50 cents, and the tourists are going to be charged $2, right? I mean, it's just extreme case, but some, you know, are $20. So it really just depends.
Yeah. Another question from La Garza followers: has your life ever been in danger while traveling? What's the most dangerous situation that you've ever been in the 3 years of traveling 7 continents and 103 countries?
Oh.
Well, I mean, I'm sure there might have been a couple. I saw that you almost stepped in a king cobra a couple days. Was it in Nepal? Like that?
Well, it depends on how people define
walking around tigers and stuff like that.
I've had, let's see, unfortunately we had a motorbike crash in Honduras. That sucked. The rain started coming down, you know, just enough to make the road slippery. Had my girlfriend Katie on back, and the wheels came out as we came around a bend. If we would have been about 5 seconds quicker, we would have slid under a car. But luckily, we walked away from that one. When it comes to people, I would say one of the most intense moments I had was in Johannesburg, South Africa. I love to walk when I get to cities. I think that's the best way to really see a city. And was walking to where one of the prisons Nelson Mandela was in. And the hostel that I was staying in at the time, I didn't notice it, but on the back of the door, they're like, "Do not walk these streets." Well, that was the street that I happened to walk up, and had some people, had this guy approach me and basically told me to get in his cab. And luckily, this was at the end of my first year traveling, and I knew way better. So stopped walking, got in his face, had a few choice words, and said, "You really don't want to mess with me today." And luckily, that was enough to get him away from me. If I had been a rookie, because I would, like, to be completely honest, I was the only white guy in the town. You know, it was an African part of the city, and there was a massive market. And he literally told me to basically, I was the wrong race. I need to get out of town. So get in his cab, and I could have vanished. So always, again, coming back to the street smarts, you just got to be smart. You got to trust your gut. If something does not feel right, you gotta listen to it.
Definitely. And the last question from La Garza followers: when are you coming back to El Salvador?
Man, not soon enough. You will be the first one to know when I come back. My plan was to be in Asia until after the Olympics, and I'm supposed to move to Australia. I got a working holiday visa there for a year, but hopefully sooner rather than later. I wish I had a hard date for you, but I would love to take my mom to check out your hostel and just to show her your country, because you really have a gem in Central America. I love it. So I will, mark my words, I will be back. And you sent me an invitation back when my family was going through crazy stuff. I will be taking you up. Hopefully that doesn't have an expiration date, because I'll take you up.
It doesn't, Brett. So, we'll be waiting for you here.
No, thanks so much, man. I can't thank you enough. It's been fun. I'm glad you guys had questions. That was awesome. This has been fun. And last parting words, any final words for the world on anything? The stage is yours.
Just a general message to the people to stay safe, stay inside your home, you know, follow government directions, and don't go outside your house if it's not for an emergency. I know it's tough times for everyone around the world in general, but we'll get through it, and in no time we'll be getting back to normal, back to traveling, doing what we love the most. And just a big hug to everyone that's joined the live feed here, and just stay safe, guys.
Heck yeah, man. Thank you so much. Thanks for giving us perspective on what's going on in El Salvador as well as Central America. Guys, wow, we're cruising through this series. We're cruising around the world. Hopefully enjoying this episode as much as I did. He is the man. I'm glad we were able to figure out the technical difficulties. So make sure you see this video when we finish up, because I need a copy of it. But tomorrow morning in the United States, tonight here in Asia, our next episode will be taking you to Hong Kong. Hong Kong's had a very crazy last 12 months, from the riots earlier, end of last year, into the coronavirus being only, I think it's 80 kilometers away from mainland China. So it's I'm excited for the episode tonight, taking you back to Asia. And again, if you have any questions that you want to ask, send them into the comments, send them in to me, and we'll continue this virtual tour around the world. My man, take care. Enjoy your next 26 days. Hopefully you continue to relax excited to see.
Not the worst place to be stuck for 26 days.
And excited for the world to open back up soon. So, guys, make sure wash your hands, stay safe, and we'll see you next episode.
All right, Brent. Thanks for the invite.
Hey,
see ya.
Take care, man. Bye-bye.
Bye, guys.